want to turn our attention to longer documents, and in particular we're going to look at how to use InDesign to create a book. And to create a book in InDesign, first you're going to go up to File, New, and Book. And that's going to take you to a dialog box. And in this dialog box, it's prompting you to save your book. And it wants you to give it a name, and by default it's going to call it Book 1. And let's just call this Book period. And then go ahead and save it. And it looks like not very much happened except for you got this book panel. And the book panel is what you use to create your book in InDesign. And what you have to do to create a book in InDesign is you need to add documents to the book. And you do that by coming down to this plus sign, which is Add Documents. When you click on that, you go back to your dialog box, and that's going to take you to your computer browser so that you can browse for files. And that took me directly to where I wanted to be, which was to my book file where I have chapters waiting. And I'm going to go ahead and add the first chapters. And as you can see, that added it to my book panel. And right there it shows me the range of pages that I have in that particular document. Now let's go ahead and add another document, which is going to be the second chapters. And as you can see here, this also has a page range from 2 to 13. And then next we're going to go to the third chapters. And now we have all three of our chapters. And once that's done, we now have a list of all the documents that are in our book. And if you double click on any of these documents, it will go ahead and load them up in InDesign. And when you go to your pages, you'll be able to see the pages in InDesign. Now, a couple other things to quickly talk about is that if you want to reorder how these pages are being laid out, or how these documents are laid out in your book, you can just drag by clicking and dragging, and then you see the line that shows you where you're putting them, and it moves them. You can drag it back up there. You can delete them by hitting the remove documents, and that immediately deletes them. Then if you want to add it back in, just go back in and add it, and then move it back up to where you want to be. So that's how you move your documents around in your book panel. And over here on the side, it shows you that this is the style source. You want to have consistent styles between all the documents that you have in your book. So if you know that you have the styles in one particular document that you want to use in all of them, you're going to click to the left and make it your style source so that all of the other documents will be using that style as well. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that all of my documents are synchronized together so that if one document has different style, or the numbering starts here from 2 to 13 and then it restarts on 2 to 13, I don't want that. I want it to run all the way through. So we're going to have some synchronization between the different documents. And to do that, we're going to go ahead, and I'm just, for the heck of it, going to select all of the documents. And then I'm going to come down to my options panel, and I'm going to go to Synchronize Options. And right now I have them all checked, so I've got all bases covered. So I'm going to come over and I'm going to hit Synchronize. And now my book's been synchronized. And now that we've got the book synchronized, it'd be nice to also have a table of contents. And to have a table of contents for this particular book, we're going to go up to Pages, and we're going to go and make sure that we are on First Chapters. And what we want to do is we want to add a page at the beginning of our first document. So I'm going to go ahead and select Page 2. And then I am going to go up to my options menu, and I'm going to insert a page. And I don't want to insert after the page. I want to make sure that I'm inserting at the start of my document. And then I'm going to hit OK. And now that I have a spot for my table of contents, it's time to create a table of contents. But before we go up and start the process, there's one thing that we need to mention, and that's that you have to make sure that any document you brought in has paragraph styles applied to different sections. And right now you can see that if I'm in paragraph style and I'm looking at this chapter header, I have a header style applied to anything that says chapter 1 or chapter 2. If we go down and see chapter 2, you'll see also in the header format. And that's important because when you're making a table of contents, the computer reads where those styles are and then adds them and calculates with those styles. So that's important to know. So now we're going to go ahead and go to Layout on the menu bar and go down to Table of Contents. And in here we have the TOC style, which is going to be the default. And I don't have any other styles for the table of contents, so that's perfectly fine for now. And then you've got a place where you can put in your title. And I'm perfectly happy with the title of it being table of contents. It is going to put whatever you put here on the table of contents page. It's going to use it as the header for that page, so be aware of that. And the current style that I have is a style called Contents, which I created specifically for the table of contents font. But you could certainly use another style that you have in your documents if you wanted to. Next on the list, you have styles in the table of contents. And this is where you tell the program what formatting style to look for that you used that you want it to print out a table of contents for. In other words, I put all my chapters in the header format. So if I click header and I put add over here, then that tells the program that it should use whatever's written in that particular style and then write down what page you can find that on. So that's what you're telling it in the styles in table of contents. And that's the only style I want really showing up in my table of contents, so that's perfectly fine. And next you have here style, header, and then entry style. This is the style of the font used for each of the individual entries. For the title, I have table of contents, and I've got it specifically in the contents style. But for each individual entry, like the one that says Chapter 1, Page 2, maybe I want that in a different font. So I can come down here and say, put that in normal text, and then that will do that there. When you're happy with what you have selected, go ahead and hit OK. And as you can see, I've got this warning that came up, and it says, do you want the table of content to include items in overset text? Overset text is text that when you put in a text frame, you filled up that frame and there was extra that didn't fit in the frame. If you want that to be included, you can, but people can't see it because it's not fitting in the text frame. So I'm going to go ahead and put no. And that's actually an error. You probably shouldn't have overset text, but something to keep in mind. Now that you're done with that, you're going to come back here and you're going to say, wow, I have a blank page. But you're going to come up to the top, drag out a new text frame, and then bam, voila, you have a table of contents. So now that we have a table of contents, the next thing on our list is let's come up here to the options on the book panel, and let's make sure that we save our book. And once our book is saved, we want to go back to the options on the book panel, and we can do something like export the book to an Epub. And just click that, and that will bring you into a dialog box that will ask you where you want to put the file and what you want to name it. And let's just go ahead and call it book for the heck of it. And then you're going to hit save. And that will bring you into a second dialog box. And in here, this is where you decide what version of Epub you want to use. It says that Epub 2 is the standard approved by the IDPF in 2007, but there's also a newer version. So I'm just going to go with the older one because you never know when you want the most people to see it. Using the older version sometimes works better. And the big thing here is that you've got set up for the cover, and you can either rasterize the first page or you can add an image. And I'm going to go ahead and add an image, and that will take you back to your browser so that you can find a file to use as an image. Let's just go with some standard pictures, and right now it says that it's looking for a GIF and I don't have any, so we'll go with a JPEG and pick just a standard image and use that as our front page. You can also set up the margins for the first page and some other stuff, but that looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and hit OK. And that's going to create your ebook for you. And finally, you have the option to export your book as a PDF file. And to do that, you're going to go up to File on the menu bar, and then you're going to come down to Export, click on that, and you could also do Control E if you wanted to. And then you need to give it a file name, and I'm going to call it Book, just like the EPUB. And then here you have Save as Type, and that's where you have some options. If you save it as an Adobe PDF the way it is, it's going to do a print PDF. But if you come up to interactive, you can do an interactive PDF. And when you hit save, this is going to once again bring you into a dialog box. And here you're just going to decide what options you want to include in your interactive PDF. And some of those options are, for pages, you can decide if all of the pages in your document or just a range of pages should be included. You can view it after exporting or not. I'm going to say not. You could also embed page thumbnails if you wanted to, and you could create Acrobat layers if you have different layers in InDesign and you want to make those navigable. You can do that in Acrobat. That's something that you can put check there. You've got view and layout here. This is just the default view that will happen when you open up the PDF. So if you want it to open up at actual size and the layout to be single page, you can set that up. You could have the presentation open at full screen, and you can set up when the pages flip, and you can also set up your transitions between the pages for your presentation. You can also create a tag PDF, and most important, down here at the bottom, you have your image handling. And the image handling is important for mainly one reason. There's one thing to know. JPEG, it says lossy. You also have JPEG lossless and automatic. JPEG lossy means that you're going to lose some image quality. However, you're going to have a file size that's going to be smaller because you lost some image quality. The higher quality the image, the bigger size your file is. So that's just something to keep in mind. You need to weigh the balance between image quality and image size. And once everything's set up the way you want, just go ahead and hit OK, and then that will create that PDF for you.